Hi, this is Benita from Resting to Rise. I wonder, have you ever tried to do something, you wanted to change a behavior, for example, and tried and failed, just didn't do it? And your inner drill surgeon came out to play, said, oh, you're so stupid or so terrible, or why can't you, or why, this isn't going to change. So, what I want to share with you is what you can say instead of channeling the words of your inner drill sergeant. There is a construct called SelfCompassion. Kristin Neff is the research psychologist who has really popularized this idea. I'll leave her link down in the notes below. But basically, self-compassion is something that a lot of times people think is being soft on ourselves or letting ourselves off the hook, right? That we have to be really tough on ourselves in order to keep moving forward. Because if we're feeling so stuck, the only way to get out of being stuck is to really push hard. It's not necessarily the case. Actually, a more gentle approach has been shown to be more effective in getting us to incrementally move toward what it is that we want. So what exactly is self-compassion? It's made out of three things. The first component or piece is this idea of self-kindness. So instead of speaking meanly, harshly to oneself, you could speak kindly to yourself in the way that you would a friend you cared a lot about. This is really hard for many of us. Somebody I know often talks about this idea of how we have so much head trash going on in our minds. But the next time you do something and it's not quite how you want it to be, pay attention to the way you narrate to yourself. Is the tone harsh? Is it repetitive? Is it mean? And if it's any of those things, or some way that you wouldn't want to speak to a small child you care about, how is it that you can change it to a more kind, loving, gentle tone? So that's the first ingredient in self-compassion. The second ingredient that goes into self-compassion is this idea of common humanity compared to self-isolation. So sometimes we feel like there's something that's so idiosyncratically bad about us. There's something just so wrong with me in particular, and nobody else could understand this, and it's just some weird quirk about me. Where is it that you can shift and reframe to be able to find the common humanity? You might be able to say things to yourself like, oh, this is something that a lot of people go through. A lot of people feel this way. It's just what it means to be human. When you can make that shift towards self-kindness and common humanity, then you're on the road to self-compassion. Now, the third piece of self-compassion, the third ingredient, is this idea that whenever we have negative emotions, let's say in response to some kind of failure, big or small, to be mindfully aware of that. So not to pretend that you don't have those feelings. Again, you don't want to gaslight yourself. I've said that in different places. But you also don't want to over-identify with yourself with those negative emotions, feeling like, oh my goodness, this is all me, or like really totally buying into that story. So how do you find that balance? That mindful balance is what you're striving for. And all it is, it's really basically noticing and then giving yourself some grace. And so I like to remember when I mess up and I'm feeling embarrassed or ashamed or whatever it is, that self-compassion, these three ingredients of self-compassion can make a really big difference in helping me move forward. Not only is it kinder to myself, but it's also going to help me make progress and learn. So again, those ingredients are self-kindness instead of being harsh to yourself, noticing a common humanity instead of isolating yourself and feeling like you're completely different. And then in response to whatever negative feelings you have, kind of being mindfully aware and letting them be without over-identifying with those things. So I'd love to hear from you. Next time this happens, are you able to find these three elements of self-compassion? What are the easiest ones for you to hook into, and what are the harder ones? Let me know. Love to hear from you. And why does this have to do with resting? Well, one of the most exhausting things that we do is the opposite of self-compassion. We can end up really being the purveyors of our own self-torture. And so we got to cut that out. And that's going to take practice. So practice with me. Let me know how it goes. This is Benita from Resting to Rise.